Hello everyone, Alex and I very pleased to welcome you to the webinar this afternoon. So what we're going to do is go through the presentation briefly and then move on to questions. Now we've received a few questions already, so we'll run through those, and then following that, if there's any additional questions, we can answer those as well. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and we can start. So hopefully everyone can see that. So Mkango, the strategy: mine, refine, recycle. There's three arms to the business, and really the purpose of the presentation is just to give an update on what we're doing. As you know, we've recently completed the feasibility study last year. We've also completed the environmental social health impact assessment. That was approved by the government of Malawi earlier in the year, and we're currently finalising the mine development agreement. And I know there's going to be questions on that, so we'll come on to that later. In addition to Malawi, we have a project for a rare earth separation plant in Poland. So we're around the sort of pre-feasibility stage for that. We're looking to bring in a partner to move that to the next phase, and that would process a mixed rare earth carbonate from Malawi. Fantastic opportunity right in the heart of Europe, really to sort of feed into that European supply chain and international supply chain as well. What we're also very excited about is rare earth magnet recycling. There's a very significant market opportunity here. We have and developing scaling up a global footprint, scaling up in the UK, then Germany, and then the US. We're partnered with Cotec, and so we're very excited about that international expansion. We've recently announced that we're going to increase our interest in Hypermag to 100%, and really that restructures and consolidates our recycling interests under Magneto, which will be the vehicle to scale up and roll out this technology. So that transaction will complete towards the end of this month. Very strong partnership network of partnerships, including Jaguar Land Rover, GKN, EMR, ILS, Bentley, Unipart, Bowers and Wilkins. A lot of R&D has got into this technology to get to this commercialization stage. $100 million US in R&D with University of Birmingham and various partners, and we're currently scaling out and rolling out that technology globally. In terms of the market opportunity, there's been a bit of a weakness in the rare earth sector recently, driven largely by Chinese economy. However, the outlook is still very positive. Growth coming through from electric vehicles, supply-demand shortfalls. We are very well positioned to supply into that supply-demand shortfall. In terms of the recycling, less than 5% of rare earth magnets are recycled. The challenge for rare earth magnet recycling is how do you get a magnet out of an assembly? And this technology, the Hypermag technology, licensed from the University of Birmingham, addresses that hurdle, and that number, less than 5%, should be more like 30%. So again, we're very well positioned to participate in that market. The feasibility study, we announced this last year. Some good numbers on the feasibility study. Importantly, we've completed the environmental social health impact assessment. That was approved earlier in the year. This was in compliance with IFC performance standards, also the global industry standards for tailings management. This is a great project, long operating life, and a lot of exploration upside. We've also identified a number of areas for project optimization as well. So we would complete that optimization during the front-end engineering and design, which would be the next phase of project development. Project finance banks have been on site. We've had various development banks. That happened around the time of the feasibility study. The initial due diligence was done, no major red flags, and now we are, before we move to the next stage of project financing, we're looking to bring in a strategic partner to move this project through the FEED and into sort of project development, also to lock in sort of offtake contracts. There are very few projects globally which have reached this stage of development, literally a handful. It takes time and capital, a bespoke processing flow sheet to get a rare earth project to this stage of development. That has been part of the challenge of the sector, but we're one of the very few companies who have done that, and we now have an advanced stage rare earth project ready to capitalize on this sort of pending supply demand shortfall. Community relationships has been very key to us right from the start of the project. Even starting at the exploration stage, we had a number of high impact, modest cost social development projects, and as the project has progressed, we've scaled up those projects, mainly focused on education in the communities, progressed the project through sort of stakeholder meetings, which I think those years of building those relationships and those projects really was a sort of major benefit for us. So integral to the vision of the company. And I think in terms of development in Malawi, very much complemented what we're doing on the recycling side of things and what we'll be doing in Poland as well. In terms of Poland, this is a great site for a separation plant. We looked at a lot of sites. We looked at the UK, we looked at elsewhere in Europe, and really the focus was on minimizing operating costs and best-in-class technology. Conventional technology, but best-in-class, so we can compete on cost. This site has great infrastructure, reagents and utilities on site. It's in a special economic zone. We've completed a lot of work on this project, initial due diligence, scoping studies, and we're probably around the sort of pre-feasibility stage at the moment, and currently looking at partnership options to move that project through to the next phase. Importantly, we believe this project, from an operating cost perspective, would be competitive with Chinese separation capacity, right in the heart of Europe. So competitive operating costs, but equally important, this is a circular process. It's a very circular technology. So we would have nitric acid and ammonia coming in for the purpose of the rare earth separation, and then ammonium nitrate going back. That would be sold back to Group Risotti, who own the site next door, would lease us the site, and are working with us as we sort of progress the project forward. So it's a very circular project, and that means it stacks up very well versus other potential technologies. So moving on to recycling, as I mentioned earlier, we have created Manganito as a vehicle to focus on downstream technologies, and really recycling has become the focus. We see a huge opportunity in this space. As I mentioned before, less than 5% of rare earth magnets are recycled, and Hypermag and the technology license from the University of Birmingham has potential to unlock that supply chain. So that number should be closer to 30%. Hypermag was established by experts in the field. Alan Walton, current head of the Magnetic Materials Group at the University of Birmingham. The late Rex Harris, who's got a huge amount of experience over many years, was a founding director of Hypermag. Dave Kennedy, who set up Less Common Metals, the only sort of major rare earth alloy producer outside Asia, and John Spade, huge amount of industry experience, including in the US as well. So fantastic team of founding directors, It's been a real pleasure to work with the team, and we'll continue to do so as we scale up and roll out the technology. Hypermag Germany really set up as the platform to expand in Europe, led by Professor Carlo Burkhardt, who's a 20% shareholder, and then with our convertible, that'll be 10%, and he runs some major European projects on rare earth magnet recycling. We're also, and the entity is held by, and the business is held by Magneto. We have Hypermag, focused on short loop magnet recycling in the UK, and Mkango Rare Earths UK, piloting chemical process for magnet recycling, and then Hypermag Germany, short loop magnet recycling in Germany. Then we are in the process of setting up a joint venture with Cotec that will be the vehicle to roll out the technology into the US. We're very excited about the opportunity there, and has been spending a lot of time with Cotec scoping what that business will look like. The terms of the JV is that Cotec will fund the development and rollout into the US for a 50% interest. This is a very exciting business. And really, it's just the start. So we're looking at other jurisdictions as well to grow the business, and it's really the launch pad for the growth of this part of the business. So the key challenges of recycling is very difficult to get a magnet out of an assembly in an energy efficient way. Hypermag, the HPMS technology, addresses that issue. If you shred a hard disk drive, you lose that magnet. It ends up, it sticks to everything, creates maintenance issues downstream. Similarly, with a rotor, it's very difficult to get that magnet out in an energy efficient way. And the HPMS process, which uses hydrogen, is a way to, first of all, demagnetize, but also liberate that magnet. And you collect the powder, and then you can either remake a magnet, which is the most energy efficient and shortest loop product that you can produce, or you can melt to make an alloy, or you can chemically process. And Magneto is positioned in all of those different technologies. Around 100 million of R&D has gone into this to get to the commercialization stage now. There's a pilot facility up and running at the University of Birmingham. That was commissioned last year. The scale up is happening at Tyseley Energy Park in Birmingham. Equipment is starting to be delivered. We're looking to commission that later this year. So that'll be the start, and then we're looking to replicate, roll out, scale up in Germany and the US and other jurisdictions. So production profile, UK commissioned later this year. Minimum capacity 100 tons a year. Hypermag Germany commissioning next year. That's 60% funded by the EU and the local ministry. We're looking to start the pilot plant for the chemical process, which is really complementary to what Hypermag are doing. We're looking to commission that later this year. And then in terms of Cotec and the JV, we're completing scoping studies at the moment, which will lead into the feasibility studies, and development will look to accelerate shortly thereafter. So that's the production profile, near-term production, really complementing what we're doing in Malawi and Poland. So this is what we're looking to produce. This is the shortest loop product. So you have the input scrap. This is actually, I believe it's a rotor. These are the compacts before they go into the sintering furnace and before they go into the magnets. And these are actually finished magnets, which have been samples that have been produced by Hypermag from the pilot facility. So we're already in a position to produce samples, and the scale up will happen at Tyseley Energy Park, and that'll form the basis for the rollout. So in summary, Malawi feasibility study done, the environmental social health impact assessment is done. So the next milestone is the mine development agreement. In Poland, the pre-feasibility study, and until the study has been completed, we're looking to move that forward with sort of grant funding and strategic partnerships. On the recycling side of things, chemical pilot plant targeting commissioning this later this year. The pilot facility for Hypermag and at the University of Birmingham is being commissioned. The demonstration plant will be later this year for Hypermag and the University of Birmingham, and then Germany in 2024, and the development of the US business in parallel. So we're looking at 3 jurisdictions initially, but looking to scale up and roll out internationally. So I think that's the sort of presentation. And what I'm going to do now is move on to the sort of Q&A, and we're going to start off with some questions that we've already received. And the first question is the one you know, a lot of people are asking, and so we're gonna cover that one first, and I'm going to pass over to Alex for that one. What is the progress with the MDA?
Thanks, Will. Progress with the MDA. First of all, we've made significant progress. I can tell everyone on the call, significant progress has been made. We're now down to the final few points with regards to negotiations. As you know, Malawi government back at the end of January approved our ESHA, and it's all signed off. That's a key part of the licensing process. Very few rare earth projects out there have an ESHA signed off, which has been done to World Bank Equator Principles. Most importantly, I recently met His Excellency, the President of Malawi, Lazarus Chakwera. That was a fantastic meeting. We've got huge support from Malawi government and the whole range of ministries and all stakeholders in country. I'm in daily contact at the moment with Ministry of Mines and Ministry of Justice, as well as Ministry of Finance. It's just doing the final few points, and we will have this MDA in place. There's nothing to suggest that we won't receive the MDA. It's a process that we're going through, and you know, something to bear in mind for all of our investors. You know, this is the largest commercial investment in Malawi for over a decade. So you can imagine the amount of scrutiny and the amount of work that's gone into this mining development agreement. We want to get it right. It's a key part of the future mining project in the country. So very exciting times ahead, and looking forward to updating you in the near future.
Great, thanks Alex. So moving on, next question, do you foresee having to do an equity raise in the near term? So really our current focus is bringing on a strategic investor. So, you know, over the last few weeks, we've been engaging with potential investors, and what we, you know, both from Malawi and for Poland, we've got a data room open, and we're engaging with various potential partners. I think another aspect that perhaps we haven't talked about so much before is that we're also looking at grant funding opportunities, in particular in Europe. I think, you know, sort of Hypermag and on the recycling side of the business have a very strong track record of getting grant funded support in the UK, and certainly similarly for the recycling business in Europe as well. Mkango Polska, the vehicle for the separation plant, is already participating in a major EU funded project called Resilience, looking at integration of primary and secondary supply chains for rare earths. So we have grant applications been submitted, and as you would have seen from the last financials, as at the date of the last financials, we had 12 months working capital. So in terms of moving on to the next question, when will production and commissioning commence in the UK and Germany for the Hypermag plants? What is the ramp-up profile, and when can the market expect guidance to be provided? So as I mentioned earlier, we're targeting commissioning and initial production in 2023 in the UK. Now there'll be a scale-up profile and a ramp-up profile. And we would keep the market updated on that. In Germany, we're targeting commissioning and initial production in 2024. So initial production, as you'd expect for production, certainly of the magnets and for alloys as well. Initial production will include customer samples, but also for the purposes of product certification with end users. And that ramp up that I mentioned is going to depend on the availability of scrap. So that is a constraint generally in the recycling sector, but that scale up, that sort of availability of scrap, we expect to increase very substantially, particularly as EV material comes on stream and wind turbine materials comes on stream. And the important thing to recognize here is for the technology, the HPMS technology that's been developed by Hypermag and the University of Birmingham, that has the ability to liberate and recycle rare earth magnets from sources of material that other groups that can't be recovered in a economic way through other technologies, through manual dismantling, for example. So this gives us a very significant competitive advantage in this space. And really can enable us to unlock that supply chain and increase that proportion of recycled material available to the market. So moving on to the next question, what sort of revenue generation does Mkango expect from Hypermag in the coming years? So based on the sort of capacity of the development we're looking at hundreds of tons of capacity, already a minimum of 100 tons a year in the UK, minimum of 100 tons a year in Germany, together with Cotec, a minimum of 300 tons in the US. So that's already sort of 500 tons a year. As I mentioned before, the revenue is going to depend on the availability of scrap. There will be some integration, i.e. bringing in primary production as well to support the production profile. So for example, the magnet making facilities that we'll be developing can take not only recycled material, but could also take primary source material as well. So there's also synergies between the mining side and the recycling side of things. In terms of the revenue, that is something we're working through in terms of the scoping studies. It's going to depend on the type of product, whether it's sort of magnets, alloys, or material that goes for chemical processing. And it's going to depend on the grade of magnets and obviously the customer sort of demand for that material. Based on comparable companies, we're anticipating significant value uplift in this business. Looking at some of the comparables, hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a huge amount of value we can unlock in this business. I mean, just looking at the US JV alone, that's likely worth significantly more than the Mkango market value, at the moment. So we see a lot of potential there. Hence, getting into this business some years ago and been supporting the growth of it. So just moving on to the next question: have you identified any offtake partners once in production? And we've got multiple discussions underway. And that's really for at different levels. So the product from Songwe in Malawi would be a high value mixed rare earth carbonate. So in contrast to a lot of other projects, we're going further downstream at the mine site. So we're looking to do the chemical purification on site. We're looking to increase the NdPr percentage by removing cerium. So it'll be a value-added product. It'll be a purified product. There are, apart from what we're doing in Poland, there's other separation refinery developments being considered globally. There's existing capacity available. So we're seeing a lot of interest for that product. So we've got multiple discussions underway with various end users, trading companies. And we're looking at a scenario where we would have a sort of sequential development, Malawi, Poland, and then when it comes to Poland, again, we'd be producing competitively at a competitive cost in the heart of Europe, you know, right where this whole sort of EV boom is going to happen. So I think we'll see very strong interest in that material. And you know, this is a strategic project for Europe, and we're already seeing support from the European Raw Materials Alliance, EIT Raw Materials. So very excited about that development. And in terms of recycled products, as you could see earlier from the slides, you know, the capability is there to produce recycled magnets. They would have a very significantly reduced carbon footprint, you know, 90% energy, lower energy compared to mine to sort of magnet. So as you can imagine, with the regulations coming in about recycled content, the very strong sort of focus on minimizing carbon footprint, we're seeing a lot of interest in that product. Again, multiple discussions underway with end users. In terms of next question, moving on, where will you be sourcing scrap for the plant? You know, we're in discussions with end users, OEMs, and recycling companies. There are already R&D partnerships with recycling companies within the group. So we'd see a combination of those type of sources at the moment. And as I mentioned earlier, the magnet manufacturing facilities that will be developed in the UK, Germany, and in the US could not only take recycled material, but also take primary material as well. So I think what we'll see is initially a proportion of recycled material with primary feedstock, and then that proportion of recycled material increasing over time as we see more scrap material coming available. And just to emphasize again, the real competitive advantage of the IP and the Hypermag technology is that it can liberate and extract magnets in an energy efficient way from magnets embedded in scrap. And that's the majority of scrap material that's available at the moment. So that's a key competitive advantage for us. In terms of next question, what is the status of the feasibility study for the separation plant in Poland? As I mentioned earlier, you know, we've completed internal studies around the pre-feasibility level. So we got a good understanding of the cost structure. We believe the operating costs would be competitive with China. Clearly, it depends on the input costs and nitric acid, ammonia, but there's an ammonium nitrate byproduct as well. So, you know, very strong potential to create a hub here. And the integration, I think one of the advantages here is, you know, this isn't a standalone plant. You know, we have the benefit that this project is underpinned by an advanced stage project in Malawi. So again, there's other separation plant developments, but they don't have the level of integration we have in terms of the supply from Malawi. So we see that as a big advantage, and we're looking to leverage sources of grant funding as well to move that sort of project forward. Next, the next question, which I'm going to pass over to Alex.
Yeah, so the next question is with regards to our previous rutile discovery. So there's been a question regarding that and our RNS from 3rd of December 2020. Look, we know that there is rutile in that Mchinji license area, but it does require further exploration and processing to fully evaluate its potential. Now, for us at the moment, as you're aware, the funding and development of the Songwe Rare Earth project remains our primary focus in Malawi. So that's what we're concentrating on at the moment.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so just moving on to the next question. Can you justify the recent award of options? I think this is referring to an option award earlier in the year. So just to make clear here, those options were issued to directors and management. They only vest when the MDA is issued. So we're all very much incentivized for that to happen. And they were awarded at the same price as the equity placing at the time. And you know, and I also purchased a significant amount of stock in the market actually at a higher price to the market. So we're very much incentivized to make this happen going forward. So just moving on to the last of the questions I've received here. So when do you plan on listing Manganito? As I think I mentioned earlier, we believe there's a significant amount of value to be unlocked here, and I think you know, Kotak share the same view. A listing could be an opportunity to unlock that value, but I think what we really are looking to do at the moment is confirm and through various, you know, the work we're doing at the moment and the scoping studies to get a better understanding of the economics and to get a better understanding of how much value is in that business. So that is something we're working on at the moment. Obviously, it's going to be subject to market conditions, but certainly wouldn't rule that out for the future. So that finishes the questions that we've received. So I'm happy to open that up to answer other questions. I see we've got one here. Have you ever thought about putting a refinery in South Africa or any manufacturing component? You know, in terms of the separation plants in Poland, we were, you know, fairly focused on Europe in terms of sites. We wanted to be close to the market. And you know, as we know, there's, you know, Europe has a you know, is a very significant growing EV market. So we were pretty Europe focused. We did look at other jurisdictions. We looked at different technologies. We ran the numbers. This site in Poland ticked all the boxes. But you know, I wouldn't rule out looking at downstream opportunities in South Africa at the moment. We've received a lot of support from South Africa in Malawi. There's you know, a strong connection there, and certainly in terms of moving the feasibility through and getting the feasibility study done, we had an extremely good, you know, great team out of South Africa, and I think we'll maintain that strong connection. So just moving on to the next. The next sort of question, you know, in terms of the next question, what would be your ideal way forwards, you know, in terms of the perfect scenario? You know, I think as I've alluded to, we've effectively got three businesses, all which have a significant amount of potential value. They're all complementary. You know, to date, you know, we've really grown the business from, you know, a single exploration asset, and we've built up and brought in other complementary assets, and we've done that, you know, in partnership with other groups. We've advanced the projects. So I think we're looking to, you know, build on and grow those businesses in partnership. So we are looking for strategic partners. We are engaging with potential partners, and you know, we see huge potential for the group. And you know, there's very few companies that are positioned like Mkango all the way across the supply chain. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. So next question, what time frame would you expect for the Malawi mine to be fully operational? So really, this is driven by a number of sort of milestones. The near-term milestone for us is the MDA. We anticipate that will further catalyze our engagement with strategic investors, and that will complement the work that we've already done so far on the project finance. So the next stage of development is the front-end engineering and design and optimization. As I mentioned before, we saw a lot of potential for reducing costs, and that'll be a 9-month process, and then we'll move into development financing. And we're looking at construction of 2 to 3 years, but that will be fine-tuned during the front-end engineering and design. So, but the near-term milestone for us is the mine development agreement. So, next question: what are the jurisdictions for recycling you're engaging with? We're very interested in the Japanese market and Canada as well. Clearly, we're a Canadian company, and we are looking at other European sort of jurisdictions as well. Okay, so in terms of the next question, we believe from Coatec's presentation today, there may already be a proposed plant lined up for Dallas. Any comment on that in your working relationship with Coatec? They said it's great. Well, we've got a fantastic relationship with Coatec, a shared vision, huge potential in this sort of sector. In terms of sites in the US, we were with Coatec in the US, recently, and we did spend time in Dallas, and I think there would be a number of benefits to a production base there. And I think we're really the sort of model that we're moving towards is a spoke and hub model, minimum of 3 sites, and then potential for magnet making and other downstream opportunities as well. So, okay, so the next question: you stated you have a 12-month runway of cash, so there's no placing coming. Share prices, I think we're susceptible to market volatility as everyone else is. We're at a stage at the moment where we've done our feasibility study, and we're obviously working on a major milestone, which is the MDA, which I think is clearly a big milestone for a company. I know, and we recognise a lot of shareholders and investors are waiting for that. So that's a big focus for us at the moment. But we see that as a catalyst for a lot of other positive developments for the company and news flow. I think on the recycling side of things, the focus has been on completion of the Hypermag transaction. So we announced that we've announced that acquisition, but we need to complete the transaction. So there were various approvals that we're expecting by the end of this month, a couple of weeks' time. Once that happens, we anticipate a lot of news coming up out of Hypermag as we gear up for first production, and there's other parallel opportunities we're looking at. So I think really that's the focus. Obviously, news flow is a catalyst for support of the share price, but there's a couple of these milestones that we need to really that we anticipate as a real catalyst for that happening. Okay, so moving on to the next comment. Could comment on any China issues that might detrimentally affect any aspect of Mkango. We don't see that as a major major sort of issue for us. China is a very substantial market for rare earths. It's not only the biggest producer, but also the biggest consumer of rare earths, and does drive the market and demand to a certain extent. I think the approach that we're taking is to have sort of the flexibility to participate in at every step of the supply chain, and where we see the most value. So I think, and we've successfully done that. So we're participating in the mining, obviously in Malawi, Poland, the project. The mine in Malawi, the separation plant in project in Poland, and then recycling with the downstream part of the business. Okay, question: do you think as a company you could have better communication and market Mkango better? I think as I mentioned before, there's a couple of things we're working on which will catalyze sort of news flow going forward. There's always things we can do better, and one of the reasons for doing this this Q&A session, we're conscious of the fact we want to update the market, what's happening with the company. There's always things we can do better, and we do value the feedback from investors, please feel free to get in touch, and we will endeavor to make sure your queries are answered. I think one of the reasons for doing this is rather than selectively responding to questions, we wanted to have an open forum so everyone could benefit from that feedback. Is the share price fair at the moment? As I mentioned before, I think the value we can unlock from any on each of the businesses we're involved in would be a significant multiple of the share price. So clearly there's other factors that come into it. There's the general sort of market volatility. There's rare earth price volatility, is what's happening in China in terms of the economy. So there are aspects that are out of our control. However, we continue to build the business and grow the business through partnerships. So we think there's significant upside from these levels. So next question: are you presenting to investment fund managers in the USA, UK, and Europe? Well, our focus really has been on the UK and Europe. I would say I'd say we're equally engaging with off-takers, potential strategic investors, and industry partners throughout those jurisdictions. We're looking at we've got a global footprint, so that's really where the engagement is happening. Next question: can you clarify that your separation process using hydrogen is unique and cannot be copied? This is a patented technology developed over many years at the University of Birmingham, and it's licensed by Hypermag from the University of Birmingham. So it's a patented technology, I think we're very comfortable with that. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions. So I think we'll draw things to a close now. But I really want to thank everyone for participating in the presentation and Q&A session, and appreciate all the support of our shareholders. We recognise it's it's been a volatile time with the share price and everything, but really appreciate your support, and we will, continue to update the market and on a regular basis sort of run these Q&A sessions. So just want to thank everyone very much. And I think that's it from us.
Thank you, everyone.